welcome to another episode of Mysteries Unknown. Guys, I've got a really good episode for you tonight. We've got Poncho with us, and Poncho's going to be talking about a Class A Dogman encounter he had back in 2023 in Mississippi. He was out biking with his dog on this trail, came across this creature, and it gets really scary. He's going to get into all that. But before he talks about that, he's going to talk about an encounter he had in the state of Washington with a Bigfoot creature that walked out in front of him while he was driving down the road. But what makes this encounter so strange, he's going to talk about some specific details he noticed about this Bigfoot creature that just leaves you with a lot of questions. This is a really good episode, and you want to make sure to listen to all of it. But before I get into any of that, I just want to say thanks for being here tonight. I appreciate every one of you guys. If you've got a mystery you would like to send me, you can send it to me by email at mysteriesunknownpodcast@gmail.com. But let's jump right into the story. Poncho, welcome to the show, man.
Well, hello, Joshua. Hey, it's good to be here. It's sure beats a sharp stick in the eye for sure.
Well, man, you're 100% right about that. I'm really glad, Poncho, that you sent me that email. And I know we've had some issues connecting, but I'm glad I got you on here tonight. And there's so much to unpack here. So if you don't mind, start back in the state of Washington when you had this Bigfoot encounter and walk us through that.
I used to live over in Seattle. Actually, it wasn't Seattle at first, but then I moved to Seattle. Started out on the peninsula side over at a place called Paulsbo, and so I'm really familiar with the area out there in Washington State. Lived there for a while. So I developed a friendship with a fella that we have a lot of the same interests as far as, motorcycles and, pew-pews and, just a lot of stuff like that. And went through some personal stuff and had to move back to Oklahoma. And long story short, he calls me up one day and he says, "You got to watch this video." So it ends up being the How to Hunt with Steve Eisenberg. I forget his name. Steve something or other, the How to Hunt guy. Anyway, so he goes on, starts telling this story about my buddy's experience. And my buddy the whole time has known about them, know they exist, and never saw one. And he's woodsy. This guy, I'm telling you, if there's any person who spends more time in the woods than him, knows the woods, I'd love to meet that man and learn from them too, because this dude knows his stuff. And when he said he went out there, he has a Tacoma pickup with a tent in the back of it, so he was sleeping in the back of his truck. And he said he had some of the, what do you call it, the Sierra sounds and the samurai talk and all this going on, and trees shaking and things being thrown, and so I went out there and I saw his site. I flew all the way out to Seattle and rented a truck just to go hang out with him for a few days. And so we load up the truck, we go out there. He's got a place out on the ocean, out near Ocean Shores. So we load up there and we go out towards Hump Tulips. We go view his site. This is October, mid to late October 21st or 22nd, I think it was. We go out there and we go on his trail and we sit there and nothing happened. And it was just humdrum. We went, found a few mushrooms and walked around, and we were sneaking up through this draw that, has water in it. And so that constant sound of water, he seems to think if you're going to sneak up on one, it's going to be around water, because of the noise or something. And so nothing happened. We go back, jump in the truck. Well, if it wasn't the next day, he had to work, so I go out and running around in my truck, and I got my drone and everything sitting next to me, my camera, set up on the drone controller sitting right next to me. I drive around all day. Nothing happens. I go back and hang out with him, eat dinner and what have you, and I got another day of this. I'm driving heading from Chimacum, Washington. I'm heading into where the John Wayne Marina is, because I had another kind of cool thing happened to me years ago when the very first time I went to the John Wayne Marina. So I was just going to go out there and see if anything's changed. I was sightseeing. I'm there on vacation, whatever. I'll spend the day out there, fly my drone. And I get into Chimacum, and I forget the highway that runs through Chimacum, but one that runs it will take you to that area. And I remember there's a truck there that's always parked in the on the right of way, on the edge of the right of way. They use it for like advertising. There'll be flowers in it. There'll be, signs, bush hogs, whatever, just whatever. They change it, and sometimes they sell fruit or something out of it too, fruit or vegetables. And I just know it's coming up. I've ridden that thing. I've ridden past that area 30, 40, 50 times. And as I pop over this hill and where that truck ought to be, and the very first thing in my mind was, who put an 8-9 foot tall Sasquatch cutout in the right of way, and how big is that frame got to be to hold and support that thing? And I'm just kind of shaking my head, like, who? I mean, because it's in the right of way. You can't leave stuff in the right of way. But then again, October 21st, Halloween's coming. My mind's like, oh yeah, that's what it is. Somebody's put a Bigfoot theme. They're gonna have a haunted house, a spook house, whatever's going through my mind. And I remember that Mini Cooper's going, and there's another car coming right at him, and they pass. And as soon as they pass, this thing walks right in between them, 3 strides. And then I'm thinking Halloween, somebody's got some stilts on, and I'm thinking, no, wait a second. That head, conical head, squashy, kind of looking down, like big shoulders, kind of, big head, big long arms, big, like freaking muscular, like hands. And as it walked, I remember seeing a reflection of the sun that would have been coming pretty much, I don't know where. Actually, it was heading from west to east. And at that time, the sun would have still been coming up because it was 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock in the morning. And I remember its hair was kind of flopping, and it made it kind of look like it was wearing chaps. The first thing I thought was a costume. Chaps would be a perfect way, something to kind of put fur on. Well, it was kind of like a reddish tan, or like the coyote tan of some of the military backpacks and stuff like that. And I thought, but it's just a different color, maybe even a golden color almost. I thought, wow, that's weird. If that's a costume, that's something, And it just kept going. And next thing you know, it disappears, and those cars just keep going. And I think, well, they must have saw something that I didn't see, and they know it's just because if surely they would have hit their brakes or something if they had noticed that. They just kept going. So I kind of was starting to brush it off completely. And then as I went down that road, and the name of the road, I can tell it to you now, and it's called Nip Lee Road. NIPLEE Road. And it was walking from west to east. You'll figure it out. And it just crossed. And as I remember passing that road, now it's slowed down to probably 45, 50 miles an hour by now. And I remember turning and looking and seeing that thing walking, thinking, that's no, because it's moving so fluid, so smooth, like butter. Its hands stayed below its knees. And it just kept walking. And I turned around. Well, I didn't really turn around right there. I think I drove about another 3/4 of a mile and just shaking my head like, no. Dude, I'm by myself. I don't, my drone's put away. The day before I had it out, my drone's put away. All I got's my cell phone. It's in my pocket, and that day I couldn't get anything to charge past 60%. That's something I remember that. And that went on the next day as well. When I was looking down that to my right, and it's kind of ironic, this picture at the bottom of this screen, the Mysteries Unknown screen that you have Bigfoot looking over its shoulder, you see how you've got the veins in the arms there? Well, this Bigfoot, down its back, it appeared to have, I can't explain it in any other way than saying it's cornrows. Braided rows of hair vertically. And I don't mean like haphazard, like a 3-year-old, 4-year-old's messing with mom's hair. I'm talking like go to wedding, like it was shiny, beautiful. There what didn't appear to be a tuft out of place. And it appeared to be only maybe about 6 or 7 rows wide, but they were, good wide rows. And I thought, and later, after thinking about it after the incident, I thought, could that be plumbing? Could that be tubes? what is that? Is this, and that was hours after, I think. But, and so I just remember I thought, oh, my buddy's not going to believe me. He's not going to believe me. He will not believe me. Absolutely. I know he won't. I'm kind of ashamed that I didn't, get my phone out and, the whole thing's going through my mind. Well, how could I miss this opportunity of a lifetime? This is only going to happen one time. God, how much of an idiot can I be? And I get home or get back to his place and I tell him, man, dude, he didn't really want to hear, he really didn't want to talk much about it. He was like, no, you're just trying to taunt me. I stub my toe, you break yours kind of deal. So I just said, yeah, that thing was big. It was 8, maybe 10 foot tall. I think I think it's 8, 9 foot is what I told him, but it was probably 8, 10 foot tall. And I didn't tell him much after that. Cause like I said, you just stub your toe, break yours, and I didn't want to make a big deal of it. My belief was also something in my heart told me, don't start screaming Sasquatch right here, right now, populated area. Don't want nobody to know. I don't want nobody to track him down. I don't want nobody shooting at him. It's whatever it is, it's way smarter than me. And I don't want people tracking me down looking for me. And I just remember thinking, best leave it alone for a while. I don't think I told a soul except for a very good friend of mine. I told her and maybe my sister, and my sister, that's where it hurt. That's the one that hurt. When I told her about it and tried to tell my family about it, my heart sunk that day because the way they treated me over it. Like, and then, I said, no, man, there's no way. I just saw what I saw. I'm not, why would I make this up? I have no reason to lie. I should have jumped out of that. I was in a rental truck. Should have jumped out, looked at it, took pictures, but I'm not a Bigfoot researcher. I don't claim to be. I don't know what. Now I've got a track kit and things like that. I still haven't. I'm too after everything that's happened. I'm afraid to go in the woods by myself anymore. And then plus, I don't want to know any of those tick-borne diseases. So if I do go in the woods, I like to just kind of, go out in the wintertime,
I don't blame you for that. And, one of the consequences of having these encounters is it changes your relationship with the woods for a lot of people, and for good reason, and we'll get into the Dogman stuff in a second. That's a great reason to not go into the woods. But, out of all the encounters that I've personally heard, I've never heard of anybody describing the hair like that being braided. And it makes you wonder, it's just more things to this world that makes you scratch your head and try to figure out, man, that's such an odd thing. And I always wonder why they run out in front of cars like that, just nonchalantly. But what do you think it was doing in the area that day?
I think he was going to a function, a social event. Is what I think. I think he was either that. I literally wedding, some kind of like Sasquatch event. I have no idea. And I ain't gonna lie, beautiful. I mean, it was shiny. It wasn't no dirt. Wasn't no, like I said, no hair out of place. No, they ain't. I mean, they may have some animal in them. We have animal in us. We just shocked. How do you, like I said, there's a lot of disappointment in myself. Just chalk it up to another experience and, thinking, I just missed, because if I'd have gotten that video of that, and if I'd have made that right hand turn and had that drone, I could have maybe followed it for a while. And if I'd have had all that evidence, that'd be a different life right now. I'd be going to these festivals and shows and just, I don't know, charging people to see the video. I don't know what do you do,
And I wouldn't beat yourself up over that, because a lot of people have these encounters and grabbing the camera is an afterthought most of the time. You're in that moment, you're seeing something that's not supposed to be there. Your body's in shock. What are you supposed to do? Yeah, you don't want to take your eyes off of it, and you just want to, capture the moment. And, and I understand, like, the first time I shared my encounter with somebody, the disappointment I had and just how I felt, right? And that's why I started this channel, is to kind of help with some of that and get that stuff off of your chest, because it's really important. But, I know that we could go deep into that, but I really am anxious to hear about this Dogman encounter that you had. Man, why don't you take us into that encounter and walk us through that?
Okay. My encounter was October of 23. I'm blown away by Bigfoot right now. It's January, the second weekend of January, and I get the urge to just go out in the woods, ride my bicycle. It's cold. I know. I got a great set of coveralls. I got a puppy. I got to wear him out. When I was a kid, the family came up. We went up to Greenville, Missouri, and did some fishing. Played a little Ghost in the Graveyard. There's like 6 graveyards in this area, so I remembered the area. And I was like, I'm going to take my bicycle, and there's a trail. It's a 3.5 mile trail. I'm going to take him out there, and we're going to ride 7 miles. That was it. We go out there I think it was the second weekend of January, and that's when we were having a lot of snow melt, a lot of rain, and a lot of flooding in this area. This particular area out near Lake Wapapello. This is actually, I used to think it was the Black River, but it's the St. Francis River. So it kind of follows where Greenville is. There's the town of Greenville is the newer town, the one you see now. If you punch and go to Greenville, Missouri, you're going to go into this little small town. I think there's like 600-800 people in this town, and but the old town of Greenville is down by the river, and they've pulled up a lot of the buildings, moved them up to New Greenville, and the Corps of Engineers was responsible for that back in what was it, 1911 or 17, somewhere around that time frame. And so Corps of Engineers had them moved, blah, blah, blah. People think that whole campground that's left behind with all the remaining structures, which is mostly 99.99% of it is old foundations, sidewalks, and a cemetery down there. But it's privately owned. But it's called the Greenville Recreation Area. And so I go down there that weekend, park my bike, start noticing these signs: park is closed. Everything past the boat ramp that goes into the campground underneath the bridge of 67 highway is closed. And I'm thinking, well, that sucks. That's where the trail is. I don't care. I got a bike. I drove an hour and 30 minutes. I'm not going to go anywhere else. So I put the Bluetooth speaker on the bike. Dogs got little leather booties on. iPro, orange vest, orange everything. It's, my coveralls and everything. We ride this trail, go all the way into Greenville. I think I eat something at the I think it's like the Midway Cafe or Midway Cookhouse, I think is what it's called. So anyway, I go down there and I ride this entire trail. I had a great time. Listen to music, ride through the woods, get back to my truck. I don't think I saw anybody. I'm like, I'm going back. Maybe next week, and I'll just make this my little deal, So I go home. Thursday rolls around. I start getting ready, prepping a bag and all my stuff, throwing in the truck. And Friday after work, drive by the house, pick up the dog, get something to eat, whatever I did. No, after work. That's right. It wasn't after work. I headed there early in the morning. I think I left out the second time. I left out at probably 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. Hour and a half drive. I get there. And as I'm pulling in, something weird happened. I remember as you're driving in to the boat ramp area, which is where I park almost every time I go there, unless I plan on sleeping there, then I go down towards the campground. I remember driving in, and as I was looking up and kind of to my right, it was like time advanced like 10 seconds, and I must have moved like 10 seconds farther ahead than what I was 10 seconds ago. And I just remembered, wow, that was weird. And I just kind of starts, in like not literally, but just start shaking my head kind of deal, like what just happened. And as I continued that look up and farther to the right, I see a red and black McDonnell Douglas MD 500 helicopter, also kind of known as a Hughes 500. It's got a lot of different models. Really cute little helicopter, 4 people, turbine. It's awesome. Anyway, I see it taking off, and I'm thinking, oh, farmer, whatever's looking at his crops, whatever. And as I finish this thing, thinking, wow, what a time thing. What was that all about? Why is the helicopter here? I go to pull into the parking spot, and I look down towards the campground under the bridge, and it's a good quarter mile, probably eighth of a mile at least, to where the campground starts, where there's kind of a parking area. And I look down there and I realize there's people down there and the signs are still up for park is closed. And I'm thinking, I didn't drive an hour and a half to go somewhere else. So I remember loading up my bike, Bluetooth speaker, orange vest, or an orange construction jacket. I'm sure everybody gets it. And if I'm outside, no, I wear orange a lot. So I was outside with him earlier. So um, it's not that it's my favorite color, but it's very practical. Um, so orange vest, everything. My dog's in an orange vest. Put his little booties on him, all that. Look down there, and I realized that two of those cars, since I used to work for the Corps of Engineers, I knew that those were Corps of Engineer police vehicles. And there was two state game warden trucks, the brown Missouri, game warden trucks. Another truck with a trailer and a couple of ATVs, or at least one UTV, maybe. I'm going to hold off on the UTVs, but definitely a fuel tank, maybe a 200, 300 gallon fuel tank on this trailer. And then right then I thought, oh, helicopter, trailer. I've seen this set up before. It's okay. They're inspecting the high water, the floods, because there was a lot of water. I mean, the boat ramp there. When I was there, I remember walking down to the boat ramp, and the water was maybe 4 foot down from where the boat ramp starts. So it was rushing water. It was just there was a lot of flooding at the time, and so I thought, oh, maybe they're just inspecting the river for the flood, maybe structures, whatever. And so I get everything ready, and nobody comes and says nothing to me. I feel like an American. I'm going to take my leisure time. I'm going to go down here, get on the trail, and I take the trail that I know the best that leads me the farthest away from the parking lot. And I go past these guys. I don't even wave. I just have my dog. And at the time, I was trying to teach him off leash. He's not ready for it still yet. And that was 23, or 24, January 24, or no, January 23. Sorry, January 23. And so I just jump on my bike, blaring my radio, and now I'm playing tribal drum music as loud as that thing will go. Just American Indian tribal drum music. I pass them. I go into the woods. I go down there. There's a little sneaky spot where the trail kind of tees, and you can go towards the south, and that will be where the river is. And there's a park bench down there, and you can hang out. So I go down there, hang out the park bench for 10, 15 minutes, leisure time, kind of letting him get some water and everything. Load him up, and we start heading back down towards the new town of Greenville. Get all the way into Greenville, grab something. I think I grabbed something to eat there when I was there at the cafe or at the cookhouse again. Didn't think nothing of it. Jump back on the bike, start heading over to there's a bank there in Greenville. And I'd ridden my bike from the cookhouse over there with him on the leash, and I realized as I was going to release him off the leash to go down to the trail and head back down to my truck, he was coiled like he was ready to strike, like a dog. You know how when a dog locks up, they're just every muscle in him's all locked up. And I thought, why is he locked up? And I remember I kind of looked up at the highway, and I thought, surely he's not, looking at cars. At the time, he had never chased a car. He hadn't done that. But I just remember he was really tense, just tight. And I let him loose. And he takes off towards the road. And I think, I'm going to lose my dog on 67 highway today. He's not coming. I get down to the trail, and I'm riding down the trail a little bit. There's a tin horn laid down there on the ground. And I remember I stopped pretty close where that thing's at now. And I stopped. And finally, he just broke chase. Whatever he was chasing, he turned around and came back to me. And this time he came right back to me. And I thought, well, that's good that he did that. He ran all the way up to the right of way of the highway, stopped, did one little circle, and then turned around and came back. And I thought, well, leash time for you, buddy. Maybe not so politely said that. But anyway, I put him back on the bike, blasting my music. We start going down the trail like nothing happened. There's a tunnel that goes under the highway there just outside of Greenville that you can take your bicycle and go get to the other side of the highway without crossing the highway. And so we go through the tunnel, that's probably 400 or 500 yards from Greenville, maybe 600 yards from Greenville. And I thought, okay, he's learned his lesson. He's tired. He's not going to run from me. He's just going to run next to me. I'm going to let him off the leash again. I let him off the leash, and he has other plans. He takes off. When I let him off, he was coiled up tight again. I don't know why, but he was. He takes off. This portion is probably the worst uphill portion of it, and usually I have him pulling me uphill, and since I let him off the leash, he wasn't happening. So I get up to the top of this hill, and I'm still yelling for him. And as I'm going down this portion of this hill, I start picking up speed. I'm on a 29-inch, mountain bike. So it's a really tall bike. I'm 6'4". I've got a pretty good advantage of everything that's going on. There's no leaves on the tree, and I'm looking for my dog to the left. And then I remember looking up, and I saw this gray mass, thinking it's a weird set of trees. The way they're nope. That thing had it seemed to me like when it was running, it seemed like it was running away from us, and it had stopped and turned at us at that exact second. And it turned and looked at Sabo and saw him, and it was kind of fixed on Sabo for half a second. And I must have yelled or looked up and yelled at Sabo. I wasn't yelling because I'm screaming like an 8-year-old girl or something, but I was yelling at Sabo, and I saw this, and then he turned, he looked at Sabo, and then he looked at me, and he turned to his left, whatever it was. At first I was thinking 7-8 foot tall jogger in the woods on a hill, no trail, shaking my head like what? Because this thing, it was massively tall. It turned and looked at me. I couldn't make out a face. It almost was like it had taken a couple of steps, like it was almost ready to bolt, but kind of was like almost like a stutter step, or I stopped it dead in its tracks, and it was in the process of turning. But something was going on with it, and it looked at me, made this left face, and took off. But when I say take off, it has its right leg took a churn, no different than a train piston, an old steam train piston driven wheel, and was like chug, chug, chug. Did maybe 3.5, 4 of those, and was booking it from my left on top of this hill down this ridge line straight through the trail. And I'm running, I'm booking it, and I'm thinking, I'm dead. Whatever that thing is. I had my 45 on me at the time. That's not enough gun. I had I had 3 magazines altogether. 40, I think it's 41 rounds. It wasn't enough gun. I knew it as soon as I saw it. So I thought, if I'm gonna die today, I'm gonna ride into glory, whatever. I guess it's my day to die. And I start pedaling as fast as I can. This thing crosses the trail, stops behind a tree, does this, like this, but more spread out. It's way bigger. Looks at me, does a left step, drops its arms behind that tree. Not 2 seconds later, I pass within inside of 5 foot of that tree, and I turn and look over my shoulder. There's nothing there. The continuance of that terrain from the top of that's an old railroad grade. He drops down, it drops down, the terrain does, into this boggy, messy, nasty, it's a bog. It's no way to get it. It's all the flooding and everything. So if that thing was human, it didn't go down there. I stopped not 20, maybe 30, at the most 30 yards from where I saw him, and waited on Sabo to come down the hill. Sabo keeps coming down the hill, and he runs right to that tree, not to me. And then he comes to me, and I buckle him up, and we sit there for a good 2 minutes, looking, listening. Look up the tree, nothing. Maybe not 2 minutes, maybe a minute. Things are going really fast in my brain right then. But we were sitting there, and then I was like, I don't even know what that is. At the time, Dogman, I had no idea. No, I hadn't even heard of a Dogman story. Have I heard of werewolves? Oh yeah, yeah. One of my favorite movies when I was a kid. Several of them. I like the older stuff, but anyway, and I just started kind of shaking my head, and I went to the next park bench right after. I mean, it's not 100 yards from where I saw it, and I stopped, and I know I sat there for a good 5-10 minutes. Nothing came to mind, not even Dogman. I I had no analog. I had no nothing to go off of. I never watched any of these shows. Um, I just remember sitting there, and when I say recreate or recreation, I'm gonna burn one. I'm gonna smoke a joint. Is this thing gonna come after us again? What's gonna happen? I'm at a disadvantage. I'm 250 pounds. That thing 700, 800, 900. Massive. It had this. It was all gray. You remember the older sweats, those old gray sweats. That's the only color I saw. Now, mind you, there was kind of an overcast day. I'm also back to the Bigfoot. That day I saw that, I was wearing a set of green, these exact glasses. They're polarized green lenses. And so now I'm starting to think maybe the polarization has something to do with me seeing those things. But anyway, back to the story. So I'm sitting there at this park bench, and I sat there for 15, 20 minutes, scratching my head and, entertaining my dog, because by now he was having nothing about it. And I think that is, what's this? So I load up on my bike and I ride the rest of the trail back, kind of a lot slower, and kept him on the leash and forewent the little side spur trail, the little half mile, quarter mile. It's probably like a quarter mile spur. I went straight back to the park, straightest route back. No, rode right past the game wardens and the Corps of Engineers people. But I was probably 50 feet away, 60, 70 feet away. They were just sitting there with their arms, like tailgate session. They just made a couple of them. I don't even think looked at me. They maybe until I passed them. I just kind of waved, kept going. Didn't want to say nothing. Got down to my truck. Man, there's one more component to this. I get home. If it wasn't that night no, it had to have been the next night. I walked my dog to this one area behind the place where there's some woods and I can let him go. But there's this big kind of terrace. There's this terrace was basically a retaining wall that leads into a terrace piece of dirt. And I'm walking my dog up the hill towards that, but we're still at the bottom. And I remember I forgot my flashlight. And as soon as I thought no flashlight, I looked up to the trail, the exact trail him and I go in on, maybe 20 yards in front of us. And a big dog. I don't know. I've been out there 100 times before and 100 times since, and I've not seen another dog in this area. A big dog on all fours runs into the woods. Don't have my gun, don't have my flashlight on me. I just go right back where I came from with me and my dog right inside. But this one was on all fours. It was big. It wasn't as big as what I saw, but it was big.
Poncho, I don't even know where to start, man. There is so much to unpack there. What a weird day. I mean, that's a lot there. And, my opinion, I think you're very fortunate to be here to share that encounter and to tell that story. I mean, that's incredible being that close to something like that out in the woods. Do you think that everybody out there, the game wardens and the helicopters, you think that was in relation to that creature, or do you think that was just totally by chance?
I don't think it was totally by chance. What I think is the game wardens and everything, they were out there hunting hogs. The pressure that was going on those hogs forced the dogman into that area. Being that I'm sure by now, anything that knows what humans do, spends that kind of time in the woods, knows the closer you get to civilization, the less gunfire. So I think it was using that area, and there's also, it might even live in that area. It might be based in that area. It might have been returning home from a night's hunt. I don't know, because there's maybe 5 or 6 cemeteries in that area. One of them is a Civil War soldier that is an unknown soldier's grave. There's another one in the park that I've mentioned before that's got several Civil War soldiers buried there. It's a very old cemetery where I think where the close not the closest cemetery to where we were at, but the closest cemetery that wasn't the one in the park was it's a very old cemetery. Let's just say not a lot of. I'm probably the first visitor in years because I went there afterwards and it was less than a mile from where I saw it.
That's something that pops up with these encounters is graveyards for some reason. You look at the LBL, man, the land between the lakes. I mean, that is like Dogman Central. And it seems like that, they're always in some kind of proximity to a graveyard for whatever reason, man. And who knows why that is. But, man, there's a lot to get into. But what do you think kept you alive that day, man? Because, I mean, if you were that close to that thing, it could have definitely got you if it wanted to. But what do you think kept you alive?
I think the fact that in my mind, I was like, look, I'm dead. I'm either going to have a great story or I'm going to be dead. And I just started pedaling harder. I think it realized in my heart that I'm not out to hurt it. If it would have reached out to grab me, the only thing I probably could have done is let it do what it do. It it it. I don't think there would have been time for me to get my gun out. I don't think my gun was enough. Um, I think I was in the back of my mind. I was thinking, oh great, everybody's going to hear about me on David Paulide's stuff. Here I'm going to be gone, or it's going to be, or I'm going to be a mess. I didn't think this that day. I just knew. I was like, I'm either going to be dead or I'm going to have a great story. I mean, there's, and I just don't know what to say about it. I know I've been back several times, and the area didn't spook me because when I saw it, now mind you, let me go much more through the description of what I saw. Very tall, very, very bowed chest, like a dog would have. Like you see a skinny dog, and you pick them up by the feet, and you just look at how bowed out their bellies are and how narrow their waist are. Well, that was kind of what it looked like. It was all gray when I first saw it. It was all gray. It looked at first. I thought it was a jogger, like a huge jogger, with headphones on underneath the hoodie. Because it just looked like it had a pronounced head and a long, not even a long snout, not super long like a major biting canine, but it had a snout. But I didn't really notice that until it kind of made that left hand turn and then started running. I could just barely see a little bit of it because trees, it's flashing behind trees and branches and what have you. And I'm just watching this thing going down this hill, hoping it was going to run farther than the trail. But as it's running, I realized after that giddy up that it had, that little hitch that it showed in the first three steps, it wasn't really swinging its arms as much as those arms were out and just kind of doing this. I think if I remember right, but its paws were like it tuck, like if you were a human, you tuck your thumbs in. It was like that's what I was seeing. Was it going down the trail, kind of like kind of like that? And then when it turned and looked at me, it looked like its eyes were just like bandit eyes, like a raccoon, like diamonds, like two diamonds merging diamonds. I can't do it. So anyway, that was a square. But anyway, diamonds. It just looked like two diamonds. And when it looked at me, I knew that wasn't the look that I needed to fear, but I was scared. I knew something. Something told me when it looked at me though. After it sank in, because I was pretty close to it when I started realizing I'm okay. If it hasn't moved by now, I'm okay. But I realized by looking at it, I just thought I didn't feel hate. I didn't feel any anger, animosity. I didn't feel nothing but what that I was scared. That's what I felt. But I wasn't scared. You know what I mean? I was just ready for that challenge. And if I lose, I lose.
Wow. Man, I hear a lot of encounters, but these type of encounters really intrigue me. And I wonder if it had something to do with the fact that you had your dog with you as well. if that's one of the reasons this thing left you alone. And obviously, if it, you could have definitely been a missing 411 case very, very easily. I'm glad you're not. And I think you're fortunate to be here to share that, man. After having that encounter and the Bigfoot encounter, man, how did these things impact your life on a daily basis?
Being a believer and being a knower, how can I put it? I started thinking they're targeting me. Not because, like, going back to the shadow that I've mentioned, that before the show, before, I don't think I mentioned it while being recorded, but I saw that as a kid. I saw that when I was 30 something years old. When I came home to that, I was deployed. I remember coming home after I was deployed one night, after getting back in the country, and I went to go see my family, and I still remember seeing it there.
Why don't you back up a minute? And that's a good place to interject if you're open to it, and kind of walk us through that. Because here's the thing, I've been fortunate to interview a lot of people, and one thing that I really truly believe, man, is if you've seen one of these creatures, there's another one close by. I really believe that. Thirdly, I believe that if you've seen one, your chances of seeing another one go way up. And you can say, for whatever reason, maybe it's just because you're aware of them or whatever that is, but I think you're onto something. I think that you see these creatures, your probability of seeing them go, in other words, just go way up. So talk us through that, kind of walk us through that when you were a kid, and we'll get back into this other stuff. But why don't you fill us in about that?
Okay. Well, it had to be, I started Pee Wee football, and I don't know what year y'all started, but it's young here in Oklahoma. We follow Texas, right? And so I was pretty young, and I remember just one night going to a football game. I seem to remember it was pretty cold. A lot of my football games back then were cold. Matter of fact, our colors back then were orange and black. Anyway, that's no bearing. But so I remember coming around the corner of my house that we had in Oklahoma City. Well, Bethany is the name of the town. We had now I can't think of the type of tree. A really pretty flowering tree, like it's like an Asian. Anyway, a locust tree or something. I don't think it was a locust tree. I'll think of it here in a minute. Anyway, I remember passing around that with my mom, kind of coming around the corner and looking up and seeing this shadow, and I swear, and that's the day I swear it just all of a sudden there it is. I don't remember it before that. I just remember seeing this shadow on the wall, thinking, on the of the neighbor's house. There's Mr. Roberts lives across the road. His son Randy, him and I were really good friends. I remember looking up, seeing this shadow on his porch, but it was a shadow of what at the time I didn't even know what a Bigfoot was. I just remember it looking like what I know a Bigfoot is now. And I remember it was this horizontal Bigfoot on the wrought iron vertical support for his porch, and it looked like its hands were always on that. It didn't look like a shadow would, like how they move and get longer, and it never seemed to ever be any longer, any distortion in it all these years. And I'm talking from 5 to 30, 32, 34 years old. I might have been 30. You know what? I was 36 when I got out of the Army. I was 36. And so I remember asking my mom, I said, Mom, do you see that? She's like, what are you seeing? I said, there's something on the side of Mr. Roberts' house. What is it? And she's like, I don't see what you're seeing. And I thought, maybe it's just me. Yeah, I'm a kid, you know? And I don't know when it was, but I eventually even asked Randy to come out. And I brought him outside now, because we were sitting around the back of the house, brought him around front and put him on the curb where from where I saw it. It's like, do you see anything on the side of your house? No, I don't. There's a shadow of this. He said, all I see is not the support. I don't remember what he alluded to, whatever it was, the vertical wrought iron support. Because I can't remember what we used to call them. I think we were calling them banisters, but that's not a banister. Anyway, so he said that we're climbing, he said, no, I don't see that. All I see is the shadow from that. I said, that's. And a few days later, I brought Eddie over. Eddie lived across the street from Randy. And I said, hey, do you see this? No. It's weird. Like nobody sees this but me. So when I'm this that all happened, trying to get people to see it happened after I had I don't know that it was a dream. All these years I've thought it was a dream until I started seeing Bigfoot and Dogman. So this is pretty recent. How can I put it? It just started hitting me like something's anyway. Well, the dream. I woke up from the dream. I remember sitting up in bed that night, sitting up for whatever reason, and like I need to go look out the window. So, and for whatever reason, I just fell out of bed, crawled on all fours over to where my dresser drawers were, which was up against the wall that the front of the house was that faced the road. And there's a big picture glass, like 6x8, whatever picture glass window there with about a foot and a half, 18 inches, maybe 18 or so inches of framed in area down below that. And then there's the register for this. I remember just kind of pushing the curtains in the middle, right in the middle of them. I remember pushing them to the side, looking out there and looking for my shadow person, whatever it was. And there was 5 of them tonight. And I just kind of, as a kid, I was, whoa, what? And these things were taking that rail, climbing that rail all the way to the top of the house, might as well have been a conga line, making a line, jumping off, and then following each other and just doing a round robin of jumping off the house like it was something that was fun to do. And so as I kind of stand up, and because I'm trying to get away from this, and I remember it was the front door was open, and I'm pretty sure it was the summertime. And I remember standing there looking out the window, and if it was a dream, it could have been any time. I don't know, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't a dream. And I just remember one of them saw me, and the third one had just jumped onto the ground and stood there. The second one followed the first one, but he only followed him to about the middle of the road. The third one walked all the way down all the way from the porch right to the front of the house, the porch of the house, and stopped and stared at me. Didn't make a sound, didn't move, didn't threaten me, just looked at me, but its eyes were glowing red. And that's, I don't really, I guess you guys are getting a glare from that too. But yeah, its eyes were glowing red. And I just remember standing my ground, like, do you want to fight? I'm not running. So whatever you're going to do. And they just turned around and walked back to the house. And I don't remember now if they started doing the round robin again or if I disappeared and went to the back room. The back room would have probably been where my dad was. I don't remember, but if I did that, I know I ended back up in bed. So I woke up the next morning and I told myself, if I tell anybody this story, they're going to think I'm crazy and I'll have to deal with that forever. So I was probably 7, maybe 10 by the time this happened. And because I know I was probably 10, 12 by the time I started asking Randy and Eddie and them about it. And I don't, it's something I've just kind of put in the back of my mind as that happened, but why? Is there going to be more, and eventually there was.
It's amazing to me how these things get unpacked in layers, and I know with mine, I buried my encounter until I had another one later on in life, and it triggered those memories and stuff. And I think these things are connected somehow. I think your experiences are all connected. I don't know how, and I don't claim to understand all this stuff other than there's a lot of things in God's universe we just don't understand, man. But I would be really curious to know what your thoughts are on what do you think Bigfoot is, and what do you think Dogman is? Like, I would love to know what you think. And then, in your opinion, do you think all these things were connected that's happened to you throughout the years?
I'm going to say this. Yes, everything's connected. Yes. I think there's a reason why. I don't know. I think that might have something to do with, and I say chosen one, like And I'm sure I think I've been chosen for something, and I just haven't figured out what that something is. I don't know if it's them. I'm starting to come around more and more to the prospects of there being of this is all more galactically related. I think sure there is a God, and I love that dude like you wouldn't believe. I don't know that when he comes back, if he's going to look like you and me. He might be 22 foot tall. I don't know. He might be a ball of light. I don't know. That doesn't mean I don't believe in him because he's in me. So I don't know why it's all connected. I know it is. Don't know why. We'll find out. As far as what Bigfoot is, it can only be one thing. Our relative. It's got to be humans portions of it. The majority of it's got to be. Um, I don't know about Neanderthal or whatever mixed in or this or that. And then going back to my Bigfoot sighting about the braids, the cornrows. Was that plumbing? Is Bigfoot just a biosuit for aliens? Maybe they use what you fear, things that you know of, things that, these little smatterings of history of reports that we get. That's another thing why I even went out to see my buddy in Washington's site, was because I know for years I've known there's too many people reporting these things, too many people seeing these things for them to be fake, for them to all be lying. So I've always known that, but I've never said they definitely exist until, what was it, October 21st of 23. I've never, no, I wouldn't have. I would have been like, "Man, that's a great story, dude," because that's how I was like to my friend. I was like, "Hey, man, it's a great story. I wish you would have saw it. Wish, blah blah blah, kind of deal. That's just awesome." I don't know what he is, but I think I know what he's not. I know he's not savage. If they were savage, we'd know. There would be no hiding. You'd walk out in the forest and just see Joe Blow, impaled on a tree. You would see massacres. You would see, you wouldn't, you wouldn't, you wouldn't want to go out in the woods much. If they were what they're not. They're not that. They're here for a reason. Whether they're left behind, whether they're guardians, whether there might be giants. This maybe they're a devolved version of, maybe they're Goliath, the same thing we talk about in the Bible, Goliath. I don't know, but I wouldn't doubt. Based on, I haven't even touched my UFO experiences with you, because while I was in Washington, um, brighter than bright white light looked like it was tractor beaming little tic tacs into the bottom of it at the south end of Mount Rainier as I'm leaving, uh, as I'm heading into McCleary, Washington. I think that highway's 12. I think 12 or 8. I don't remember. Um, was that a spaceship? I know it was a spaceship because a ballistic missile won't turn that fast, and it was hovering for several minutes. There was two of them. But anyway, so Bigfoot isn't the things we should be fearing. If they wanted to, we would know they were there. They don't want it. They don't want the interaction. I don't know if they're in bed with the aliens or if they are the aliens themselves. Um, Dogman, I think the Egyptians knew what he was. I think they. That's. I think what I saw was what they saw. I that's the first thing that I started looking for. And I started looking for, things other than werewolf. I don't know that they're the enemy of Bigfoot. I think maybe they know to steer clear. Maybe they're pets. I don't know. But you don't see them together.
I don't know. I don't have all the answers, man. I just know that there's a lot we don't understand. And, you brought up some really, really good points. And I think you're right, man. I think these things are definitely connected. And there's a reason for that. Who knows what that is? But man, that's a pretty wild stuff. And, it's strange that you bring up the UFO stuff because, that is really tied into my encounter, my personal encounters and things happen in the area. My dad had a UFO encounter when I was 5 years old, and I saw, these creatures within, 5 miles of where he had that encounter. And it seems to go in correlation with this stuff. And then, with Dogman, it's always the graveyard stuff. And, I think for me, man, Dogman it's evil. I think they live off of evil. They thrive off of it. You hear a lot of encounters where they try to scare people. They don't quite ever catch you, or they don't this, but they'll definitely, I hear people call them fear eaters because they will do that. And, there's a lot we could go into so much. And I think that, we could probably sit and talk all night, but I do want to go back to one thing in your encounter. You said that you had that sighting of that huge dog that you'd never seen before, after, then a couple days after that. Have you ever heard when the Dogman encounters, a lot of times these creatures will follow you or follow you back home? Have you ever heard that?
I've never heard that, but that's one of the first things I thought was, is this thing following me?
You're not alone in that camp, man. And I appreciate you sharing that with me and my audience tonight. I know they really enjoyed that. But if you see something in the future, man, or anything else pops up, man, let me know. Get a hold of me.
You bet. Yeah. Now I've got a casting kit, the whole 9 yards. I'm ready to see something again. I know they're out there. I think maybe my dog. And there's another thing I want to kind of add. I mentioned the polarized glasses. That may have something to do with it. I don't know that it doesn't. Are they a different spectrum of, I don't know how to put it in the right words sometimes, but are they in a different time, different, just whatever force fields that keep us apart? Had a glitch? Is it the Matrix? Are we living? I don't know. I just know that if it does happen again, I guarantee you, I hope to goodness I get video or something of it, because I hate not having evidence.
Well, man, just keep me in the loop. Let me know how it goes. And again, thanks for coming on the show, and be really careful out there, man. It's a really, really strange world. And I'm glad you're here to share those encounters. So, guys, thank you for being here tonight, hanging out with me and Poncho. What an incredible encounter. And I feel very fortunate to, be able to hear these and share those with you guys. And I hope you're enjoying these as much as I am. And thanks for being part of this community. If you've got an encounter you would like to send to me, you can always send it to me at mysteriesunknownpodcast@gmail.com. Guys, there's a lot out there that we don't understand, but there's one thing I do know. It's so very important. I'm going to say it. Stay prayed up. And we'll see you in the next episode.